Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is the Vulgar Marxist. This morning, I would like to discuss with you two concepts, NeoFeudalism and TItleledge. Both of these are probably going to be somewhat meta, and I ask people to please bear with me. I'm not used to explaining these things yet, and therefore am likely to lose people fairly quickly. I do apologize for that. Now, the first concept, neo-feudalism, this is probably going to be a standalone video for while it is endemic throughout society, it is not particularly necessary to expound on it over much. The second concept, TItleledge, is going to have a series of videos done upon it, for it is incredibly integrated into the concept of privilege, which feminists love so much to expound upon. Now, we will therefore begin with the concept of neo-feudalism. During the medieval period and the reign of assorted and various tyrants, brutes, and kings, the idea that something needed to substantiate the authority of one individual to arbitrarily murder and kill other individuals, i.e., the idea that the king, for some unfathomable reason, had the right to murder his subjects. The concept that was concocted by various theorists to justify this violence and brutality was the idea that the king was somehow directly connected to God, and therefore shared in God's omnipotence and wisdom. That is, the king had been divinely blessed with infinite wisdom and goodness, and therefore, even though the actions of the king may appear to be the most tyrannical and brutal humanly conceivable, they were justified because the king magically knew better than everyone else. Now, most people will happily assume that with the demise of the feudal state, this attitude vacated the public sphere. It has not. Everywhere from Ayn Rand's magical job creators to the idea that females are magically better at raising children or distributing communal resources, the notion that some people are morally superior to other people and therefore may be arbitrarily handed authority to do with whatever they please continues throughout modern social structures. This, then, is neo-feudalism. The notion that certain people have been blessed with morally superior faculties and therefore may be arbitrarily handed power without checks and balances necessary to prevent its abuse. From the perspective of both a communist and a men's rights activist, the danger of this is self-evident. No socialist really believes that some handful of people can be magically blessed to run the economy without being answerable to the citizens of the nation the economy resides in. When people say, socialists want to hand the economy to the government, they are completely missing the point. We want to hand the economy to publicly answerable officials. We have no faith in magical market anything. The market does not correct efficiently. I will go into this in later videos. There is no reason to assume that is true. Further, there is now a mountain of evidence that women are every inch as violent and dangerous in relationships as men are. The platitudes of feminists have not abated this point. The number of men forced to have sex by women is now nearly equal to the number of women forced to have sex by men. The overwhelming majority of child abuse is conducted by females. The number of men subject to violent and abusive relationships by their female partners is now nearly equal to the number of women subject to violent and abusive relationships by their male partners. Women cannot be understood to be morally superior any more than capitalists can. There is no reason to assume one group of people is morally superior to any other group of people, and therefore no reason to arbitrarily hand power to some at the expense of everyone else. The notion, I repeat, that some people are morally superior to other people and can therefore be trusted with authority is a throwback to the feudalist era and must be categorized by the words neo-feudalism. Now, on to the second point. Titleledge is going to be a significantly more difficult concept because it is so endemic to society. It is so intrinsic to our understanding of justice and the social good that most people do not even pause to consider that it might exist. It is referenced in half 100 texts. I will either include them in this video or in a future video upon this subject. Now again, I am only glossing over the subject of titleage here. I am not going into depth. This concept is massive. Titleage was something I first stumbled across by considering the circumstances of an individual living in a garage behind my house in college. This person routinely would be fishing in the river that ran through the city for his dinner. He was dumpster diving clothing and bread from the local restaurants and thrift shops. However, up the entirety of this alleyway that he was living in was garden after garden after garden that every fall rotted on the vine because the owners of the houses could not be bothered to harvest the plants they had grown. One autumn afternoon, I am looking out the back window of this house, watching this gentleman roast a fish over some sticks he had gathered, surrounded on all sides by a bounty of vegetables, and paused to consider what responsibility this person has to recognize the property claim of the owners of the vegetables. And the answer I came up with was none. This individual, who by any reasonable standard was living in a state of nature, in a condition of a violent war of all against all, who, assuming Robinson Crusoe to be true, would be just as well off on a desert island completely alone as he was in the midst of this great city, this individual had no obligation to civil society. What a horrible claim, you exclaim. How dare you assert? Please, hold your condemnation. Consider, if you will. Every theory of social compact recognizes and acknowledges that individuals in a condition of a state of nature are obligated to join the compact solely on the condition that it benefit them. From Hobbes to Locke to Rawls, this single point is constant. The stipulation is merely whether or not conditions in a state of nature are so appallingly horrific that any individual would voluntarily and freely choose to enter any social compact presented them because it would unquestionably be an improvement. Hobbes states that a social compact is always an improvement. Rousseau states that a social compact may or may not be an improvement, but the argument is continual. Joining the social compact must be an improvement. This does not change. This does not alter anywhere. No one in social compact theory, or for that matter outside of social compact theory, other than a handful of feudalist kings, dare maintain the position that an individual can be coercively forced to join a compact which does nothing but hurt them. However, we must then ask the question, what is a compact? What defines a compact that guarantees all persons participating in it are benefited? Certainly, we may ascertain that A compact involves a series of obligations imposed upon those who participate, the simplest of which can be from anywhere from do not rob, cheat, swindle, or murder other people, to something as complicated and intricate as socialized gender norms. Again, the complexity of the obligations does not in any way detract from the fact that the imposition of these obligations must benefit all persons they are imposed upon. If I am required to respect the bodily autonomy of other people insofar as I may not violently assault or murder them, then this is contingent solely upon the fact that other people respect my bodily autonomy. If I may not assault other people and they are free to assault me with impunity, this does not benefit me. This actively harms me. Whereas in a state of nature, I could easily defend myself, I am now forbidden from defending myself, though people are still free to assault me. Likewise, if I have a series of tasks imposed upon me because of an accident of birth, say my gender, and I do not in any way benefit from having to perform these tasks, then this unquestionably harms me. That is, that if I am required to, say, pay $100 a weekend for someone of an opposite gender, and I am subject to sanction and condemnation if I fail or refuse to do this, then I'm out $100 a weekend for no appreciable or reasonable benefit. This, then, is the principle of titleledge. All obligations come with entitlements. If society reserves the authority to order me about and tell me what to do, it must grant to me every resource necessary to meet its impositions. A simple example to illustrate this point, and I will hopefully come up with a better one in the future. Let us suppose that the city of New York decided that individuals were required to row a boatload of potatoes across the New York harbor to Connecticut every week. One boatload per person. Now, obviously, this is going to be an imposition upon a great number of people who may not want to row a boatload of potatoes across the harbor, who may not have a boat or oars or locks or potatoes for that matter. Furthermore, rowing a boat is quite hard work and is going to burn a significant number of calories. If the city of New York reserves the authority to tell people to row boatloads of potatoes across the harbor, then the city of New York is obligated to provide them with potatoes, boats, locks, oars, and a bagged lunch to replace the calories they have expended in their exertions. Which brings us back to the gentleman in the alleyway. If an individual is obligated to respect the property claims made by others, this is contingent solely on the fact that they do not risk starving and freezing to death because of those property claims. Locke himself recognizes this principle. It is very clearly stated in Two Treatises of Government that the expropriation of property, that the claim of a piece of land is contingent upon as much and as good land being left behind for others. I cannot imagine anyone right now attempting to assert that that has been done. So, again, the principle of titleledge is that if society has any authority at all, to impose obligations upon individuals or groups of people, it is solely on the condition that it grant to them, forward-funded, all of the resources and materials necessary to meet those obligations. It is my sincere hope that these two concepts will enable greater discussion in the public sphere. One of the ideas I have been rolling around in my head that has not been mentioned is called inverse newspeak. Persons familiar with the text 1984 will recognize the phrase newspeak as referring to the notion that constricting the number of words in a language may limit the number of ideas that can be expressed in dissent to the existing system. That is, by removing all of the words necessary to express dissension, dissension may be suppressed. The notion of inverting this concept, of deliberately and consciously expanding the vocabulary of a language in order to express greater and greater volumes of dissension from existing principles, is, in my opinion, one of the greatest services a revolutionary movement can perform.